Welcome to 755 Live, about 5 minutes of what Jesus said. And you can find a different command of Jesus every weekday at our weekday Bible plan at bible.today.church. Just a great way to get in the habit of reading the Bible. There's some tips there on how you can do that. These 5-minute segments are based on the commands and teachings of Jesus. We try to put that in a little soundbite form so it will be easy to remember. And today's Jesus said is forgive a lot. This comes from Matthew 18:21 through 22. Verse 21 says, "Then Peter came to him and said, 'Lord, how many times must I forgive my brother who sins against me? As many as 7 times?' Which to Peter seemed like a lot. Verse 22, Jesus said to him, 'Not 7 times, I tell you, but 77 times.'" 70 times 7, actually. In context, Matthew 18 is all about restoration of relationships. It's about what to do when someone sins against you. How that you're supposed to go to that person. It doesn't say, talk about them to others, but when you're dealing with someone who is at fault, you're supposed to go to them. And Jesus is giving the disciples the guidelines for restoring relationships. First, go to them. If they don't receive it, then take somebody with you. And then if they don't receive that, well, then bring it before the church, before the body. And so after hearing all that, Peter says, "Well, Lord, how many times do we have to go through this process? How many times must I forgive my brother who sins against me?" And Jesus uses this comical number, 70. This is also familiar in the Old Testament because Lamech, a descendant of Cain, said that he would be avenged if he was murdered. After he killed a young man, he said that he would be avenged 70 times 7, 490 times. I think that Jesus was implying vengeance here. That isn't our job. And that gives us the freedom to be able to forgive. In Matthew 5, and verse 38, he was talking about how the law says that in judgment before a judge that it's an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But Jesus said, don't resist the evildoer. And then he talks about turning the other cheek and going the extra mile and giving to those who ask to borrow. Peter was kind of looking for an out. How many times, when can I give up? When is it okay to be angry? I think is part of what Peter was asking. Many times we want to justify our anger. We want to justify even what we call righteous indignation. But James 1:20 tells us that human anger does not accomplish God's righteousness. Paul talks about this in his letter to the Romans. In Romans 12:17, he says, "Don't repay anyone evil for evil." And he goes on in verse 18 to say, "If it's possible, as far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all people." And then he says, quoting from the Old Testament, "Do not yourselves," and quotes again, "Vengeance will repay," which is from Deuteronomy 32:5. Vengeance isn't mine, Aubrey. Vengeance is God's. And we can, as Paul said, overcome evil with good by letting God be God and letting vengeance be his. And so forgiveness is not about giving someone a pass. It's not about not acknowledging wrong, but forgiveness frees us from our responsibility of trying to be God and letting God be God and letting us obey and be free from condemnation, be free from jealousy and anger. Not overcoming evil with evil, but overcoming evil with good. John 3:16, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. But John 3:17 says that he didn't come into the world to condemn the world, but that the world should be saved. If Jesus didn't come to condemn, that's not our job either. Vengeance belongs to God. Forgiveness is our responsibility. How many times? Well, until it gets crazy. Jesus said, forgive a lot. How can we put that into action today?